go. Hello, internet and the people. Is this the internet? Is this a
Yes,
podcast
this is technically
station?
the internet. Yep.
Podcast station, whatever podcast. Hi, internet. I'm Dale Decker, and I am joined by.
Zach Sarowik.
Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the Say Report Jr., a podcast about two people who have never met each other, decide to have internet conversations and see what happens. Pretty much
I mean,
it.
just about. I mean, yeah. There's no simpler way to really
It really
boil that
isn't. I
down.
mean, uh, we do share a title with the Say Report. I am doubling in my ear. That's going to be on the podcast. Whatever. Um, so we do share a similar name to the Say Report, if you listen to that, which I feel like some of our listeners are going to be coming over from that. Again, we are Devin and Sejin's younger siblings, and they thought it'd be a good idea to throw us on mic together and see what happens. So,
Yeah. And so
um,
far, it's been quite pleasant. Actually,
so
it's
far,
been a nice
yeah,
part of
yeah.
the every couple of weeks.
Yep.
So, what have you been up to since the last episode?
Oh
Besides
God.
basically living in an igloo, is what my
Oh
understanding of the
yeah, it's
Northeast
been
is like so
terrible.
far.
I'm just so sick of snow. That's really what it is. It's my last 2 weeks because we did this 2 weeks ago. Yeah, my last 2 weeks of basically just complaining that like I'm cold, which I really shouldn't be because like first world problems, I guess. But like it's spring. I want it to be springtime. Like, but other than that, not a whole lot. I'm still trying to finish Ultra Sun. Even though I've beaten the game, I've beaten Moon. I just trying to finish Ultra Sun. Um, Other than that, haven't really been playing anything. Um, Been watching a lot of Black Clover, which is I love that show. It's a like an anime.
I was
It
about to
was
say, how come I haven't heard of this? It's like, oh, because it's
so it's
anime. It's like the
yeah.
one nerd. That's like the one nerdy thing I have never gotten really into.
Oh, okay. Well then, so I will enlighten you on Black Clover. So Black Clover is just fantastic. I keep saying it's like the first show in a long time that gives me withdrawals when I don't watch it. Devin and I have been watching it a lot, and it was originally a manga, and then I think it was an anime in Japan, or and then they made an Americanized version. I don't really know the production history of it, but it's super cool. It's about like people with magical powers and the whole world. Everyone in the world has magical powers. Some people's powers are stronger than others. Standard magical world. Tropes and everything. And there are two. It centers around like two main kids who were left at a church together when they were babies, and so they grew up together. And one of them has insanely strong magical powers and powers in general, and the other one has none or little to none. Um, it's kind of hinted at that like his power is that he doesn't have powers, so it's really cool. But
You're
it's
so mediocre. We just decided
yeah.
to make it a superpower.
um, it's a really beautiful show. So I've been watching that and trying to stay warm, and we got Jumanji today, so that was fun. Not like the movie or
New Jumanji, old Jumanji, the video game, the board game. There's
the
like
board
eight
game.
different.
The board game.
Wow. Oh
So
my
there
God.
is now a copy of Jumanji in my house,
Yes, I used to
which
own that. It has the trouble pop bubble in the middle, doesn't it? For the
so
dice roll.
so I'm pretty sure. Okay, so me and one of my best friends from like kindergarten, she and I now Jumanji, the first movie came out in I don't even know
I want to say 90, somewhere between 94 and
5, right?
97, somewhere in there.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Okay. So, well, it came out when she and I were kids, obviously. But, I would go over her house, and one time when I went over, she was like, oh, hey, look at what I have. And she brought out the board game Jumanji, and it looked exactly like the game from the movie. Like, to a T. It was old, and it looked like it had been used, and It was just like sitting on a shelf for years. So I was convinced it was the game from the movie.
I was about to say, are you about to
Um,
secretly tell me you were actually trapped in a jungle for 30 years?
yes. So I just got out. No. So
That's weird. You found black clover in the jungle while you're
yeah,
alive.
right. It was maybe it was just. Oh my god. Oh no. No. So I was like slightly convinced because didn't know that it was a real game that they put on the market, and I also didn't understand how shopping worked as a kid. So so I didn't realize that they like, mass produced it to get money based on the movie. So I was convinced that it was like the real game. Even though I was like, no, you're being stupid. You're being stupid, 8-year-old Dale. Calm down. And so we started playing it, and the whole time I'm like, we need to finish this game. This game needs to end. We need to go. We need to go, go, go. Do not take any pauses. You're not drinking your water. We are like I was scared to death by playing this game, and she's loving it. She's laughing, and we finally, my mom had to come and pick me up that night. So we're playing this game for like maybe an hour. I don't know. It felt like 2 or 3 hours we were playing this game for, and playing it again today. It could take that long. So I'm pretty sure it did. But so we're playing it. And my mom comes in the house, and there's me and my friend sitting on the ground, and I'm like almost in tears, mainly because we had like, so I don't know if you remember how the board is set up or how the board like game is set up in like real world, but you have like the 2 columns of the disaster cards, right? And so once it's like, I want to say 12, I could be wrong, but once all 12 get filled up, everybody loses and you have to play again. You can't end gameplay until someone wins.
I was gonna say, right. So nobody technically wins. It just like
Exactly.
sets itself right.
So it resets itself. We had maybe 2 slots before we would lose and would have to start over, and I was like, that's not happening. I'm not getting stuck in this game. I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, all this stuff is happening. And I'm like, if we don't win, all this stuff is going to happen. And we're going to be the reason why the world ends. Like, this is not okay. So, so a card, it's like still a joke between us. Like, the leech card came up. And I hated leeches even before we played that game. So I started like, tears were coming out of my eyes. I wasn't like, crying because I didn't want to cry, but there were some tears coming out. And my mom walked in and she's like, Dale, we have to go. And I'm like, Mom, we are not leaving until we win this game. And she's like, no, Dale, we need to go. We can't. We've overstayed our welcome. I'm like, no. You see how much farther we are? If we end, Mom, the world ends. Okay? This is what matters. And so she was like, okay, fine. So she sits on the couch with my friend's mom, and they're just staring at us playing this game. My friend laughing, I'm crying, basically. And
Your mothers are questioning so many decisions in their lives.
So I roll, and to win, you have to get on the middle space, by exact points. So
That I do remember. Yes, that I remember.
Yep. So I rolled, and I don't remember how close I was, but I rolled and I got the exact thing. And it was like, at that point, we only had 1 card before it was game over. And I just remember rolling the dice and then taking my piece and slamming it on the board. And I just yelled at the top, because you have to yell it, at the top of my lungs. I just went, Gemma! And I just like screamed. I scared my mom and my friend's mom. My friend is laughing so hard as she's rolling around on the ground. And I'm like, okay, I can go. See ya. Have a good night. And we left.
like none of it even happened.
Exactly.
Just like, oh, good, okay, we're good, we're done. Movie over.
Exactly. But like I don't remember exactly what the board looked like, but like I feel like there was a Trouble-esque middle to it.
Like I like vaguely remember the dice roll thing in the middle, and
Yeah.
I think the paths like swirled around
Yep. So it
and
still
somewhere
does
spiraled
that.
around it in some way.
So the one that we have looks newer, and I think it's updated. I could be wrong. My friend still owns the copy that we played with when we were kids, so I want her to like bring it over so we can compare to see
Yeah,
if
like
it's
I
the
would not be
same.
surprised if they either just re-released it now because of the
Yeah,
new
because
movie,
of the
or
new
if they
movie,
released
like
like
an
somewhere in the
updated.
intervening years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this one, yeah, it's just like the middle. It's not bland, but like it's very just standard, like flat surfaces. But yeah, so that memory gets brought up all the time between me and her, because it was just the funniest thing ever. But yeah, that's basically what I've been up to.
Oh, well, that's not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been you'll be happy to know I have been replaying Horizon Zero Dawn actually.
Yes.
I finally decided to go back to it because it's been a slow start to the year for video games. There isn't too much new and exciting out right now, which is usually like the standard. Last year was weird, but usually the standard is that like January to May there's like nothing until you get into like game convention season. So oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm
Did I
here.
lose you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm just letting you talk.
Okay, no, it's okay. Or is this it got like so dead quiet? I was like, oh god, something muted,
Oh
something happened.
God, oh no.
Because that's the other thing. That's the other thing that's been happening is that like, so literally the day after we record that first episode,
Yeah.
you call me on Skype and we're like, okay, we have to put this first episode together, and all of a sudden my mic just stops, just dead, nothing,
Yeah, that was
no idea
very
why.
weird.
It just was like the day after we recorded that. It's like, okay, you're done. You don't need me anymore. It's like, no, I need you for like every other week now. Like, you can't do this to me.
Yeah, that's
So
bad.
I
That's
went.
bad
So
luck.
it, yeah. So I went and got a new headset. I bring that home. That's working fine. Then I decided last week that off of my blog, I was also going to start streaming because I'd never really done that before.
Yep.
I'd done pre-recorded stuff, but I'd never done live streaming. So I decided to try that. I go on. I get everything set up. Works fine Friday night when I test it. I go on Sunday for my first official one. My mic was muted the whole time.
Real
Which,
no.
because the
Oh.
program I was using when I hit this like when you start up the game just like by default has the mic muted, and I didn't realize that. So for like 2 hours I'm talking to myself while I'm playing a game.
No. Oh,
So I was
that's.
like, okay, well
Oh,
now I
that's
know
tough.
this Sunday what to do. Well, that's like been my life, is just like these weird technical glitches for no reason. But it's been nice to just dip back into Horizon Zero Dawn and forget about all of that. And be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, the worst thing, it could be worse. Technology could be trying to kill me.
If only I
Oh,
had a bow and arrow, though. I'd take
yeah.
it down.
Oh,
I
man.
haven't played in so long. I still haven't even beaten it, like a first time, because I
Well,
just keep getting sidetracked.
yeah, I mean, it's a big game. So, I mean, the
Yeah.
first time I played it, I played it for about 30 hours, opened up like 2/3 of the map. It was great. I did almost the same exact amount in like
Yep.
20 hours this time,
Yeah.
just knowing what I was doing,
Yeah.
which is also great because it didn't feel like I was dragging through it too much. But I forgot how much I hated things like the weapon tutorials that pop up are a pain. And they're not a pain to do. They're a pain because the way the game has it set up is that they don't trigger unless they're your active quest.
Yep.
So I could actually do the thing 1,000 times that the weapon tutorial tells me to do, and then it's like, oh no, you haven't done this yet. Have you learned to use this weapon? It's like, yes, I've killed like 80 things with it. What are you doing, game?
Oh, see,
So
I have weapons tutorials in my thing, but I have never noticed it like questioning my abilities before.
yeah, well,
Which
it's
is
just like
which is what it's doing. It
yeah,
sounds
it's just
like.
weird that like you go. Well, it's more like you can use the weapon for like 10 hours, and then you go and the weapon tutorial is like, oh, you've done this 0 out of 3 times to end this quest that could have been giving you experience points because it
Yeah.
wasn't your active quest.
Oh,
But
jeez.
but really,
sucks.
when like tiny little nitpicky things like that are the thing that I'm complaining about on a game, the game is good. Like there's no reason. Like it's an excellent game. It's beautiful. I forget about like little things, like when it rains or when Aloy goes through the water, she'll make comments about the fact that she needed a bath anyway,
Yeah.
and all I can think of is oh, this is a weird character choice that they've decided that Aloy stinks she's she's like walking around, and to be fair, probably everybody else does too. It's not like this is a society that has deodorant. It's just really funny that that was the thing they decided to highlight was that. Oh, by the way, your character smells, and it's weird that nobody else has seemed to mention it besides her.
Yeah, her one-liners are just beautiful in just in general, because she's really It's cool because it's like she knows where you are in the game, which like you don't think character like you want to think that your characters know that, but it's like all coding behind the doors, you know. But the fact that you can just go somewhere and she'll just be like, "Oh, yeah, this happens. I'm near this. Blah blah blah." Like it's just really cool. It's like a nice additive that
Oh,
it
yeah,
makes
yeah, because
like
it
it's
just adds like
appreciated.
yeah, it adds a depth to it. It adds a depth to what you're doing to
Yeah.
make it, you're not running around silently
Mhm.
all the time. It's also really funny when she talks to people and she's a complete jerk.
Oh yeah,
Like
it's
she's
I love it.
because she's spent her entire life talking to like one person, and
Yep.
so she doesn't like know how to
Who is
communicate with
who
other
is
human beings.
arguably also like an antisocial jerk.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
like
haven't
I'm like,
like I haven't gotten too far, but yeah, I
oh, I'm talking to one merchant, and all of a sudden one of the options is like, "Hey, my eyes are up here, buddy," and
really.
I'm like,
Oh,
what?
see, I
So
haven't
she
seen
says
that.
that, and he's just like, oh, well, that's just a cool spear you have that you're holding on to.
Oh my god, I have not seen that yet. Oh, that's
Like, what are you
fantastic.
talking about?
Oh my
Yeah.
god, yeah, I
But
love that game. Oh my god, I need to start playing it again.
yeah, and that was a nice that was nice to get back into that and not feel like I had like a, totally abandoned it. So that feels really nice to get to that. I'm getting a little further in the story. It's gorgeous. It's
Mm.
beautiful. Everybody should play it. But yeah, that's been basically my like 2 weeks. Is just like avoiding my technical troubles by just playing video games, basically.
Nice, nice. That's perfect.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, yeah, good catch up.
Yeah,
But I think
definitely.
there was an article that came out that you and I both kind of our jaw dropped, I would say,
Oh yeah.
seeing this. There's a movie coming out based on a divisive book, I would say, by a guy I absolutely can't stand. We'll get into that too. But sometime in the next couple of weeks, I think it's April 6th,
Next week.
Ready
Nope,
Ready Player One comes out.
it's next week.
Is it next week?
At least for us, yeah. I mean,
Oh, you know what? No, April
should
6th is something else.
yeah,
Yeah. I,
because it's definitely next week.
because the short answer is
Um,
I don't really care, so I haven't really looked.
and there
but
you go.
but but fear not, gamers and geeks, because your Black Panther finally comes out
Oh
next week,
god.
and that's Ready Player One. Oh my God.
Okay, so
Oh,
I don't go on Twitter, and this experience has been making me go on Twitter more. Just this whole podcasting because like we have a Twitter, by the way. We'll talk about that more at the end of the show. But like I try to tweet from that, but then I'm like, oh, I should check to see what's going on in the world, and then you retweet because you say that you basically live on the internet.
oh yeah.
You retweet stuff that I'm like, huh. Thanks, Zach, for
And that's
introducing
kind of
that into my life.
well,
And
see, that's just it. That's like my whole connection to the outside world is
yeah,
what is everybody else talking about, so I know how to so I know what's going on because I'll probably get Ready Player One, but like a month from now.
yeah,
It won't like I won't see it for a while because I've got two movie theaters in town.
yeah.
They're both one screen, so they're almost always second run unless it's a Disney movie,
Oh,
and they
okay.
they can like guarantee their money back.
Mm.
So everything I get is like 2 or 3 months down the line.
All
So
right. Well, so you'll be able to put it off for a little while. Yeah. So when I saw this tweet, I was like, "Who's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So Zach retweeted it, and I read the person's tweet, and I was like, "Oh God, no." And it's basically like the person who tweeted out the article was like, um, no. Like I don't know. Is it appropriate to read the tweet? I don't know if that's
yeah, you don't have to read the tweet. You don't have to say the person's name or say
yeah,
their display
exactly.
name or something, whatever you want to do.
So
But yes,
so
go ahead and read the actual text of the tweet.
the actual text of the tweet goes, "Y'all need to stop this quote unquote gamers are marginalized shit. Everyone plays video games. My grandpa has a PS4. My mom was my player too on Super Mario Brothers. It's not a culture. No one's oppressed for playing Halo." So I read that and I'm like, oh, what has the world done now? And then I clicked the article and I shouldn't have clicked the article, Zach. I should have just let it go. This is why I don't go on Twitter. 'Cause-
Welcome to my life, because what you're feeling right now is like every day for me, where it's just like I'm angry about something new. So yeah, the article headline. You have it up in front of you. Do
yeah,
you have the actual article headline
yeah.
in front of you? Okay.
So it goes. Oh crap! I actually literally just exited out of it. Give me 1 second. The actual article is, will Ready Player One be gamers Black Panther? I believe that is what the, yeah. Will, yes.
Oh.
No, no, no. That's not what it is. That's not what it is. Sorry, it's basically that, but it's actually, will Ready Player One be Black Panther for gamers? So I'm gonna
Oh.
read that one more time. I'm gonna read that one more time verbatim. Will Ready Player One be Black Panther for gamers?
Here's the one. Okay, so we're going to start with a few things on this. I want to start with one thing, though, and that is that there's more than video game references in Ready Player One.
Thank
So it would be
you.
for, if anything, it would be for like nerds or
Yep.
geeks or like nostalgia fans or
So-
something. It wouldn't just be for. Just because it takes place in a video game doesn't change the fact that they're referencing way more than video games.
And let's be honest, is it really a video game or is it just Second Life? Which I
my
understand is a
God.
video game, but it's basically just real life. Like, come on, calm
Man, yeah.
Like,
So.
it's the Oasis, Zach. All right, it's not a video
Yeah.
game.
So have you actually?
It's
So
a
have
way
you
of
actually
life.
read
No,
read
I
the book
didn't.
at all, or so
So-
I have not either. My entire experience with this book was when it came out. I saw a bunch of people talk about how either it was a really great story with all these great pop culture references, or it was this book sucks and it only gets by on its pop culture references. Like those are the two critiques of the book. And so I was like, I'll wait for the movie. Basically, as soon as this book came out, it blew up, and everybody was certain that it would be adapted at some point, because why wouldn't it be? And they were right. And so I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine waiting for the movie. I don't even want to see the movie anymore.
No, yeah. So my experience with the book was, I don't remember what I was reading or what I was looking at, but it had mentioned the book Ready Player One, and it had mentioned that the person who wrote it was a huge Back to the Future fan, which I don't think we ever discussed this, but Back to the Future, that film trilogy is my favorite trilogy.
That is a wonderful trilogy to be be a
Yes,
fan of.
so-
I am down with that.
Back to the Future is a huge part of my life. Which it's a huge part of my, I don't know, repertoire. Along with Jaws and Goonies. There's just we can get into all of that later on in our podcasting endeavors. But Back to the Future is a huge thing. If you've met me, you know that I love Back to the Future. So I see that there's a book about a person who gets to drive around in a DeLorean in a made-up world. And I'm like, oh, okay, that is awesome. I would like to read that. I never got around to it. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing trailers popping up and people talking, and I'm like, oh, okay, so a Ready Player One movie is coming. That's exciting to me. But only because I was like, the DeLorean's gonna be in it, and I wonder why or how. And then I saw one trailer. It was the teaser trailer. And I'm like, huh.
The teaser trailer that's just a bunch of
No.
nostalgia shots.
Yeah.
Hey, remember this.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, remember this.
And
Hey,
then,
remember this.
and then I saw the longer trailer, and I'm like, wow. Okay. Not as on board as I was, but I'm still going to see it, and it's kind of exciting. And then a coworker of mine was also bringing up facts of there was an Overwatch thing in one of the trailers, and
Yeah, they definitely updated the
Yeah.
references for the movie.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I can give. But after seeing that second trailer, I'm like, wow, okay, you're making a video game movie. Can your animated characters, who are the main characters, who I'm gonna be watching the majority of the time, can you make them look a little better? Because
I love that that's your concern. The graphics are not good enough.
well, if you're doing and I try not to be this person, a crazy graphic person, but if
Well, no, but there's
that's
a
the
reason that the
world-
cutscene looks better than the game. We know you
Yes.
can do better.
Exactly, and the technology that we have in the world today for movies and video games, you can do some better CGI than you're doing for what Ready Player One looks like. The characters just look so bad. Like, it looks like you're trying to be a bad video game. And it's really distracting. Like,
Especially when it's
really,
put up,
really distracting.
especially once it's put up against all of the other things that you're referencing. Like it's not like they
Yeah.
created some sort of they didn't take the whole they didn't take the art style and somehow like change these characters and stuff so that they're all one conducive art style.
Exactly.
They just rendered everything like it looked like and then created these completely random
Yeah.
original characters that look worse.
So then,
Like,
yeah. So I was like already kind of off it because of that. I'm like, that's gonna be my one problem with this. And then I saw this article, and I was like, oh my
uh,
god.
so
Like,
that's definitely another reason why I didn't really get into Ready Player One is that
yeah.
the people that were for it were some of the worst. And I don't like I go back and forth on this a lot. Like I don't try to let a fan base, a toxic fan base, be the reason I don't like a thing.
Mhm.
But it didn't seem like I was seeing anything really redeeming it from its toxic fan base anyway. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm fine with just kind of ignoring this thing.
Well, that's what I said.
Um,
No, continue. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think that like I went with this through like Cuphead that came out last year.
Mhm.
Beautiful, gorgeous game, really hard to play, and the fan base was really freaking terrible. And so I looked at it and went, well, it's kind of hard to play, and these people suck, so I don't want to play this game. And that just kind of that it sucks when that happens, but it is very possible for like a fan base to ruin something. It unfortunately just is, especially when you are as, internet connected as I am, and I'm like seeing it every day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I try to stay away from that stuff because I am a person who like I'll look at it differently.
Right.
Like, so I said that to Devin after we saw that first trailer and after we had seen something else. I think we watched Tomb Raider or whatever after we saw the first trailer. I don't remember. But so afterwards, and I'm like, you know what I'm afraid of? Like, I was excited for this before I saw anything for it. Just because I was like, oh, it's going to be different. It's going to be cool. It's going to be nerd stuff, like stuff that I care about and like. And then afterwards, I kept seeing people get so excited for it. And then I saw that trailer with the terrible animation. I'm like, I'm going to hate this because everybody else loves it. And that's not why I want to hate it. Like,
I want to hate it for its really terrible writing, its poor acting. God damn it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But like, so that's why like I'm so nervous to go see it because I hate going in with already predetermined things, and I try not to, but I just feel like it's so unavoidable. A, with this movie, and B, it's so unavoidable in this world too. Like, because everybody has to have their opinion, and your opinion, you can literally say it anywhere, and you don't have to care. Like, I mean, you should care about like some things that you say, but you can just put it out there, and anyone can see it. And it's really like,
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting because it cycles a lot. So you get that kind of everything gets overhyped and then it's disappointing, and then things get underhyped and then it ends up being really good. And we're actually in this weird spot right now where people on Twitter and the rest of the internet are trying to figure out how to, well, I mean, be adults really is what they're trying to figure out, where they can go like, oh, this thing's not for me, but I can recognize how someone else will like it.
exactly.
Which is definitely like the mature attitude you're supposed to take to something, and the internet has never been able to figure out.
Yeah.
Like something is either supposed to be excellent or it's terrible, which is why when something is just mediocre or just fine, it completely flops. Like I think the new Ghostbusters really failed from that. Is that I think the new Ghostbusters is a pretty good B-level comedy. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly serviceable. It's not terrible, but it's not, super great. But because of the terrible, shitty pressure that was put on that movie, it was either this has to be better than the original Ghostbusters or it will never be good enough. And so when it came out and it was like just okay, all of a sudden it was, oh, that completely bombed, and this is why we should never do these reboot things. And then of course Ready Player One comes around. The same fan base that is upset about women Ghostbusters is also praising Ready Player One as like their Black Panther. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so like getting back to that, it's like, and if you find the article, like, I don't want to tell people to read the article, But the reason why you need to read the article is to just like see that there are these people who like will write this and like be passive aggressive in their writing. Because you read the whole article, or did you not read the article?
I think I saw the headline and I rolled my eyes and I tried to avoid it. So I didn't actually
Okay.
read the rest of the article.
And I don't read articles, but I read this entire article. And from what I got out of it, it was like the author was saying, Black Panther was such a strong film. So like Wonder Woman was such a strong film, and Coco was such a strong film for the individual cultures that it affected. And now, Ready Player One is gonna have its turn. So all you geeks out there, all you gamers out there, you're gonna have your chance. And it's like, no. But then so I'm like, no, you're incorrect. Like gaming quote unquote culture has not had to go through the same things that Black culture or Latin culture or anything like that has had to go through.
Not only that, literally
Like-
every time they adapt a movie or a comic or like a TV show or a comic or a video game into a movie,
Mhm.
they're gearing it toward the, white male gamers that they think are the audience of the thing they're adapting when
Yeah.
they don't realize that there's plenty of women and people of
Yeah.
color who also play that thing.
Yeah.
So it's like to say that Ready Player One is your Black Panther just because it references all these things, forgetting the fact that half the things it's referencing are things that were created for that audience to begin with.
Yeah. It's like, okay. And then in the article itself, he's like, oh, even though I understand that they're very different and that they do not have anything alike, there's still something to be said about gaming culture. And I'm like, no, you're just wrong. You were just wrong. Like, yes,
Yeah.
people have gotten, I don't know, bullied for being geeks or ridiculed. What I said to Devin was, here's the thing. You get ridiculed for games because either you get judged for playing games, and I'm not saying so much now because gaming has become quote
I wouldn't
unquote
even
cool again. It's
and
not
even
even that,
then,
but
I was just gonna say, even then, I can't even think of a time. I'm 10 years out of high school now, which
yeah.
means I'm between 10 and 20 years out of high school and middle school. I can't think of a single time that everyone around me either didn't own a game console or didn't talk about games. Like gaming has not, maybe it's different maybe it's because of where we grew up. I don't want to like knock anybody else's
Yeah.
experience. At the same time, I can't think of a single person who was ever told that because you play video games, you're going to be bullied now.
Oh, yeah,
There are other
no.
things that come along with people who also play games, and I think that people started to conflate the two, where it's like, oh, you don't play a lot of sports, or you're kind of antisocial, or you're kind of a nerd jerk person, and you just happen to play video games. But the video games are not what you were being bullied for.
Exactly.
Usually.
It's and that's what someone on the Twitter feed mentioned that too, and it was like you were being bullied because first of all you shouldn't be bullied. Bullying is bullshit.
Right.
But like the reason why it wasn't because of the video game that you were being bullied for. Exactly what you just said. Whereas like in other oppressed cultures, it's the person, like who they are as a person is what is getting ridiculed and killed and attacked and just continually beaten down. Like it's so you can't compare the two. Like you really, I mean, I'm sure somewhere in the line there are crossovers, but there's not going to be. Like
Well, right, and it's
and
interesting
it's
because
gonna be a stretch. Like
right, and a lot of the people who were
It's
in
just-
fact actually bullied for playing video games are women and people of color who were trying to be part of the gaming culture and were being told by white nerdy shitty gamers that they didn't belong there because
Yeah.
that was their space. Like that's like,
and that's the other thing. You say that too. Like that's the ridicule comes from within the culture.
yeah.
Like
It's almost always like we're making fun of you for playing that game instead of this game, or you like that type of game instead of this type of game. It's not
Or-
you play video games, it's you play the wrong games
exactly. Or
because there's this weird gatekeeping that goes on.
Yeah, and then there was a time again like like women who played video games were ridiculed a lot because, oh, well, you're a girl. I mean, even in 2016, 2017, I worked at GameStop, like I mentioned, and I worked with mainly girls. Like there was only 2 guys in the store I worked with, and then at a time it was pretty even. It was like 2 guys, 2 girls, and but then it got to a point where there were more girls working at the GameStop than guys, which like people had to make comments about.
The only reason I would comment on that is that I don't expect GameStop to be open to hiring that many women at once, but
Yeah.
that's because I don't like GameStop.
Yes, that's a whole another issue. But like,
Yeah.
there was even a guy who came in. I had to cover another story. There's a guy who came in, and yes, my name is normally was traditionally a guy's name, I guess, but it really wasn't. It's always kind of been a unisex name.
The only Dale I know of is Dale Gribble from King of the Hill. It's
Yeah.
the only other time I've actually heard that
Yeah.
name in my life, so I wouldn't describe it to anything
If you look
except for
in,
you
yeah.
and him.
Like if you look in the history of it's supposed to be a unisex name, but people just attribute it to a guy because of there's more guys named Dale than anything. But anyways, so this guy came in, he looked at my name tag, he's like, "Oh, so why'd you pick Dale?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Why'd you pick a guy's name?" And I'm like, "I didn't pick my name. My name was given to me. I actually
Oh my
really,
God.
yeah." I'm like, "I actually really like my name." And then he was like, "Oh, well, I just figured you'd pick a guy's name because, you know, girls always want to be like guys and, you know, you work at a video game store, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, my God, guy." And then he asked for an application.
Oh my God.
But
I'm trying to even I can't even think. You had a name tag on.
Yeah.
So someone they don't make name tags with your nickname on them traditionally. So
he also and he asked what it was short for, which a lot of people ask what it's short for. But like even that, like girls in video games, I don't know. It's just like you still can't compare it. I don't know. I could be wrong, or I could be looking at it from a wrong perspective, but to say that this movie is not a love letter and is the legitimate gaming movie that everybody needed, and its authenticity is spot on. No, like there are so many other true video game movies that are more about, because what the article also says is it's about what those games make people feel, like how it makes people feel. So it's like, oh, you feel strong, or you feel brave, you feel smart, and you feel loved, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And I'm like, and then, cause I know movies and I know video game movies, I start rolling off a list of game movies that do that. That I already know do it better than Ready Player One, because again, the only thing it really has in common with video games is A, the title, B, the software or the hardware, because it's a virtual reality helmet, and C, like, yeah, there's some video game things, but it's a lot of movies are in that movie too, like Back to the Future and Iron Giant.
don't even get me started on Iron Giant on that one, by the way. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that in a second, because that goes off into my whole other problem with Ready Player One. But I want you to finish your thought first.
But it's just, so if you're saying that this is the legitimate one that shows how video games are for people, but you're not even going to mention those movies, like how those movies make people feel, and you're not going to mention, like, it says that Wreck-It Ralph, the article says that Wreck-It Ralph was a love letter to how video games are, and like to video game culture.
That's closer. I would actually put that closer than Ready Player One, because at least they created an original story for it.
Yeah. Wreck-It Ralph is a love letter, but so is Ready Player One. And there are so many other games that he doesn't even mention in the article, but like, say what you will about Pixels, I really enjoy that movie because it does show that, like, what video games do for people and how video games affect people. I don't know if you ever saw Pixels.
I did. It's I have Adam Sandler problems, but
Yeah, no, I
again,
mean,
again, here's a great situation. Not for me, but I'm
yeah.
not going to shit on you for liking it.
No, exactly. And I appreciated that. I fully know that it's not a great movie. But based on what he's talking about in the article, it does more than what I'm predicting Ready Player One is going to do. Because it has that whole thing with Adam Sandler like being like, this was my life and like look at me now. But it's like, oh, my skills in video games are gonna help me save the world. Yeah, it's far fetched, but that's what happens in that movie. Like nothing in Ready Player One shows that this person is playing video games or is good at video games. It's just showing a person who lives in a dystopian world who needs this oasis, which is, let's say, call it what it is. It's pop culture, not just video games. It's pop culture in general. You need to go to this place to escape your terrible world, which is what pop culture is. That's what movies are. That's what video games are. Which, yes, so I can get behind that because I've used movies and video games to escape, the stress and the bullshit that is the world. But it's not so far through the trailers it hasn't grasped what video games mean to me.
And I think a big part of that is that it's very bad at telling you what the actual story is. I still don't even know what the actual story to Ready Player One is. All I know is that he goes into this virtual world. There is a thing, basically, might as well just call it the One Ring that they all are that a bunch of people are seeking out, and so he's got to go get it. And then at the end, there's a giant battle over it. Yeah. That's all I know about that game, about the story of Ready Player One.
Yeah. And it's like, but it also looks like the outside world is trying to attack the Oasis somehow. So that, and again, this is all speculation. We don't know anything. Neither one of us has read the book. So, I mean, and again, these are just our opinions. Whatever. But, and then he makes that speech of like, I found friends, I found love, I found this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, this is not about gaming, though. This movie does not seem to be about video games. So why is this article harping on that?
Right. Like, it's like, it's one thing, and maybe this is the other thing. So Ernest Cline, I think, is a terrible writer because I've heard different bits and pieces of people like the Ready Player One audiobook, and I've read other stuff from him, read by Will Wheaton, by the way, which is like heartbreaking only because when I hear Will Wheaton read it, it sounds like he's doing that I'm going to put on a fake smile and just barrel right through this. And I know he's by all accounts, Will Wheaton is a decent guy. I think he might actually be a fan of Ready Player One, and that's fine. But when you hear him read the words in this book, it sounds like he's just like going through the whole grin and bear it, get through this thing, like I'm going to fake sincerity because I'm doing like a PR stunt kind of thing. Yeah. And it just like the writing just sounds terrible because it just sounds like what he's actually saying is I'm going to look at something and then I'm going to reference three things about it so that I can look at this, so I can like he describes like seeing this girl, what I assume is the love interest, and it's like she's an 80s cyberpunk, no nonsense type of woman. In one sense, in one word, hot. And it's like, why is that a sentence you wrote? Like, and it's like all of this stuff where it's a base level story wrapped in how many times can I reference things to fill up the page around this base level story. And I don't know. I'm assuming Ernest Cline did not write the screenplay. I know Steven Spielberg is directing it. Whoever wrote it, they've updated the references. Maybe they've made the story better. That's entirely possible. By all accounts, that's what happened to fit the 50 Shades trilogy. that someone else took it away from E.L. James and went, we can make this better. You can go away now and like catch your check. And so maybe that's what happened, and I want to give it that benefit of the doubt. But it just is, it is a whole story, and it is a whole book that is written on, it's not even nostalgia, because nostalgia, you have to like, it's based on like just rote memory. It's based on, I remember this thing, and I think I remember how I feel about it, but by the time you remember how you felt about it, there's another thing they're referencing, so then you just remember that. It like nostalgia, like good nostalgia, like I think of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's probably the closest analog you have to this, where it's like, here's all of these things, these references we're throwing in, but it's not just a reference. They are taking the thing you remember and they're playing with it. So I think of like the piano fight
Yeah.
between Daffy and Donald Duck. You look at those, and the only leap you have to make is why are they playing a piano? They've never played
Yep.
piano before.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you can look at those two characters and go, "This is exactly what would happen if the two of them got in a piano fight."
Fun
Like that scene is perfect
fun
because
fact,
it played. Yes,
just so you know, because you didn't really look at the article, also compares Ready Player One to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
It's like the closest analog we have, but like the only time that it ever feels overwhelming, like they just threw a bunch of people on screen to make you to make you feel overwhelmed with emotion, is at the very end when everyone comes pouring out of Toontown.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's a great way. It references things perfectly, but it does it with original characters, and it's almost like Ready Player One didn't get that far. They just went, oh, if
Yeah.
I just reference a bunch of stuff, then it's going to be okay. But you need to work with that nostalgia and actually do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I feel like it's really just like also a lesson in pandering. Like, and pandering has been coming up a lot lately. Like pandering to your audience and everything, and it just seems like this is just that. Like it's just another one of those, and it's like,
oh yeah,
but painfully obvious this time.
oh yeah. And then have you ever heard of his second book, Armada? So
No.
this is when it was actually when this came out that I decided I was never going to go look at Ready Player One. Um, so Armada is a kid figures out that all of the movies and video games about fighting aliens are all part of a giant conspiracy to teach kids how to fight a real alien threat. So it's basically Ender's Game.
Oh.
But it even says basically it even like references like the the like breakdown of the plot that oh yes it's all that like Ender's Game might as well be in the book, that it's like, oh, I'm reading Ender's Game, what if Ender's Game was real? Oh, it turns out Ender's Game is real, but also in this fictional book I've written. So he basically
Wow.
which is also the plot to The Last Starfighter, which is an excellent bad movie about video games,
Oh
where it
god.
turns out that if you play a video game well enough, aliens will come down and have you like fight for them in a war. So he basically ripped off The Last Starfighter and Ender's Game all in the same freaking plot.
That's fantastic.
That's what I
Yeah.
was like. I don't think I need to read Ready Player
Yeah.
One at
No.
all.
No. It just what really is getting me. I don't think I would be as upset with it if it wasn't. It's not even really marketing itself as that, although it kind of is. No, you want to know why? Okay, have you seen the bullshit posters that have been?
Oh God, yes.
First
Oh
of all,
God,
they
yes.
were they were made, and I'm sorry. This is going to be very rude and mean, and I apologize for whoever really made those posters, but I somehow don't blame you. Um,
No,
but
because it was some graphic artist on a
they
studio
look
somewhere.
they look like they were made by like first level uh Photoshop, like by
Yeah,
a
like they were
first
made
level
in like a
Photoshop
101.
class.
Yeah.
Yes, cuz they look so first just as movie posters. They look so bad, and then they as parody posters, they're just awful. And Stranger Things did it too, and I don't really like Stranger Things, but I've never really watched it, so I really shouldn't have an opinion. But
Hey,
they
we haven't
did
watched
it.
Ready Player One, and we have an opinion on that,
That's
clearly.
true. But like I haven't gotten into Stranger Things cuz I really don't want to, but they did those posters, and I can say that the posters that they did for Stranger Things, I think it was season 2, look 1,000 times better than the
Right,
Ready
and Stranger
Player
Things,
1 ones.
and I mean, the thing is, Stranger Things does basically the Ready Player One thing a hell of a lot better because yes, it takes place in the '80s and they're referencing stuff all the time, but at least it
Yeah.
fits within the context of what they're doing. Like they're
Exactly.
referencing video games when they're at the arcade, so at least you know when the video game is supposed to be there.
But if Ready Player 1, I think that's why this article pisses me off so much. It's because this person clearly is just looking at the trailers and whatnot, or looking at just the context of Ready Player One, and just calling it a gamer movie when it's a pop culture movie. Like, it's not strictly about video games, and it's not strictly about movies or TV shows. It's someone tweeted or whatever. It's like Ready Player One is basically Big Bang Theory the movie, and it's like, oh, Okay,
Uh,
accurate to a degree, but like, it's just, I really wish people would stop harping on the video game aspect of it, because there are so many other better movies that show what this person is saying that Ready Player One is going to show. And I know that I'm like playing a dead record or whatever that phrase is, but again, Pixels did it. The Wizard did it, based on the way that Devin describes that movie.
oh yeah, I
Um,
mean it was paid for by Nintendo to promote
yeah,
Nintendo.
like
Yeah.
the Wizard did it. There was a Nickelodeon television, like TV movie with Jeanette McCurdy and Jerry Trainer called Best Player that like did it and showed. It was like a video game competition, very much in the regards of the Wizard, but it was they Jeanette McCurdy was like one of the best players in the world, and then Jerry Trainer came in and was like, "Oh crap! Like I need to beat you." Something like that. I don't really remember the plot. But like it did that whole this is what video games mean to people. And this is what happens when you're in this community and in this culture. And it also it's just hell, Spy Kids 3D Game Over did it better. Okay? Like let's just talk about that.
uh,
Like that was basically it's like I will watch that 100 times over before anything else. You
yeah,
know?
and then
Like,
yeah,
it's just, it's not a video game movie, and I don't want people to think it is, because they're gonna be very upset when it's
yeah.
not.
And then like just to say my last annoyance with their nostalgia
Oh, yeah,
trip
Iron
before we
Giant?
move on to yeah, they gave the Iron Giant a freaking gun. The whole point to the Iron Giant is that he is a gun and doesn't want to be a gun, and they gave him a gun. And everyone's excuse for it is that since it's basically the Second Life avatar thing you were talking about,
Yeah.
is that, oh, the person who created that avatar is the one that gave him the gun. Yeah. So that person should be roundly executed. I mean, come on.
That's the
Like
point of
like
the
here's the thing.
movie.
Yeah, like here's the thing. If the whole thing, honestly, if the whole like last 10 minutes of that movie were the main character turning around and pointing out why every reference in this movie was wrong or like wrong-headed or why people were getting it wrong or something, I would love that. Because I have no problem with the idea of someone created saw the Iron Giant in this dystopian future, saw the Iron Giant on like a poster, said that thing looks cool, it would look cool with a giant gun, and did that, and then got like had to get explained to them why it's wrong. Like if you're going to take if the idea to Ready Player One was everybody is stuck in this nostalgia trip, and then it turned out that the way the resolution to the movie was about how that was bad, I would love that.
That's a
But I
better
know
movie.
that's not what it right.
That's a
I know
better
that, but
movie already.
I know that's not what it is. Like if the whole point to Ready Player One was nostalgia is good, but especially like years on and things have been forgotten, like you completely miss the point.
Mm.
Like nostalgia doesn't work anymore when your nostalgia is based on what you were told nostalgia was based on. So because I was thinking about this with Steven Spielberg being the director, and I was looking at the list. I was thinking about the movies from Steven Spielberg I actually remember. And first off, I can't. I mean, like obviously he did Lincoln and War Horse are the last two movies I can remember he made. I don't even know if there's one in between those or one after
Yeah, I
those.
don't.
And then I think about the movies from my childhood that everybody loves, and when I think about Steven Spielberg, two of them came out after I was born.
Mm.
Jurassic Park and Schindler's List.
Yep.
Before that, though, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there was Jaws. All came
Jaws,
out from
yeah.
before I was born. The only cultural reference I have to those movies are when they were put on in front of me, and I was told about what people felt about them when they
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Ready Player One feels like. Is that someone went, here's a bunch of references here's a bunch of references from before you were born, and now I'm going to tell you how to feel about them.
Yep.
Which means they get completely warped, like this terrible game of telephone.
Yeah.
So,
I totally get what you're saying.
yeah.
And
So
it's
that's,
sad.
oh, it is.
It's
Okay.
basically, and I just thought of this. It's basically, this is what I'm going to call it. It's fan fiction, the movie.
Yeah,
It seems like
absolutely.
that's what it
Considering,
is.
and once again, everybody who went after Last Jedi for being fan fiction, the movie, is also the crowd that's going to love Ready Player One, and that makes
Yep.
me so mad.
Yep. Oh yeah. I don't know, and I don't know. I just and like cut to when it's released, and it is actually a video game movie. Spoilers or whatever. Like, but it's not going to be.
No, it's going to be, and here's the thing. This is going to go, going back to what I said about like Ghostbusters 2016 and all of that. It's going to be a movie that is probably perfectly fine and kind of middling.
Yeah.
But because all of this has happened before it, it's either going to be, it's either got to completely blow my mind at this point to be something completely different, or I'm just not going to care about it.
Yep.
And you're not going to be able to tell me otherwise.
It's just I still can't get over the whole. Oh yeah, I understand that video game culture has nothing compared to black culture or just any of these other cultures, but there's still an argument to be made. It's like, dude, you're fighting a losing battle, man. Like,
Yeah,
you just need to
absolutely.
stop. You need. I'm pretty sure he actually might have gotten fired for the article. I don't know how true that is, but I read one of the comments like on the actual article, and it said that he had gotten fired, which that might be a little drastic, but hey.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this is like the fifth time he's written a stupid article like this. Maybe when
Yeah.
Wonder Woman came out, he was like,
Oh,
maybe
Wonder
when
Woman, blah blah blah.
yeah, Tomb Raider was like, oh, Tomb Raider comes out. It's like, oh, finally, female gamers get their Wonder Woman. Like, what are you talking about? Go, you're done.
She's done.
You're going crazy.
You're
Stop
cut
sniffing
off.
glue.
You're
Yeah,
cut off, man.
you're drunk at work again.
Yeah. I just.
Okay.
Oof.
So that was a lot.
Hurts.
That was a lot of feelings. That was a lot
Yeah.
of
I don't
things.
even
So,
know. I don't even know if we really hit everything, but it was
oh, probably
definitely
not.
a lot of feelings.
So before we wrap up, just to bring this back to something probably more positive, I was thinking, I was trying to come up with like some other things to go along with our themes of getting to know each other and then like sparking conversation and all of this.
Okay.
I know you've watched some Star Trek, but have you watched basically everything but Discovery, or have you only watched some of it?
Oh, so I've really, truly only ever seen, the new movies.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, I've just seen like clips,
Huh,
bits
okay.
and pieces.
Well, okay. You know
I
what? We can
just,
talk about that. I love the J.J. Abrams movies. We can talk about that
yeah,
too. But
I just, I've always kind of, I don't know why. It could be back to what you were just saying of, here's this thing, here's everything you need to know about it, love it, It's just, I was told about the characters and told about what it was, and I saw as I was growing up, I saw the fights. I don't know if they're really fights, but the fights between Star Wars and Star Trek, and I'm like, Star Trek just seems better because
what was it? What was it in Futurama? The Star Trek Wars? No, that was the
Yeah.
Star Wars Trek. Anyway.
the Star Wars Trek. But it always seemed like a better franchise to me, even though I had never really dove into it. And then just comparing the new movies to, that of Star Wars, it's definitely at least what I want in a space travel,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
space centered story, because it's adventuring pretty much and discovering space.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, and
that
that's
is
exactly
cool to
why
me.
it's yeah, and that's always why it's been really popular. I was going to get into the whole "who's your captain" conversation, but that means nothing to you. But no, so the only reason the reason that I'm into Star Trek actually is because the Abrams movies were coming out, the what they call the Kelvin timeline,
Mm-hmm.
which I love, and about a year before. About a year before that came out, they announced the cast and everything, and I went, I should probably watch at least some Star Trek
Yeah.
so I know what this is before it comes out.
I
And I
should
got
have.
I got completely hooked by it.
Yeah.
But I will say that like my favorite series didn't come till like way after. I'm a huge DS9 fan. It's like Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine is
yeah.
is my Star Trek basically. And again, Discovery, because
I
well
need
the
to
things
watch it.
so Discovery shares a lot of themes with like especially the second half of Deep Space Nine, where they get into a whole kind of like war survival story and stuff like that. So that's probably why I like Discovery so much. But there's like a weird rift. I think I'm part, and I guess you would be too, part of this
Yeah.
like new breed of like Trek fan, where the Abrams movies are what brought us in.
Mhm.
So again, I didn't watch any Star Trek until until then, which means my entire knowledge and kind of idea of what Star Trek is supposed to be is based on what people told me about it.
Yeah.
And especially, of course, you think, uh, most entire original series and then the first season of TNG were from before I was born and all of that.
Yep.
So I love that brought me into it. I also think that means I don't go back and watch them with the same like rose-colored glasses that other people do.
Yeah.
Because like, it was the '60s when the first one came out. There's still tons of like kind of sexist shit in there that just comes up. It was made by a World War II it was made by a World War II vet white man. Like it just has some shit.
I mean, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's gonna happen. Even now, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think the new movies. I love what I love most about the new movies is the way that they kind of wrote in their excuse for preserving the original series.
Yeah.
Is that they made it into a mirror universe. I absolutely love that idea because it's literally the entire Star Trek canon has another mirror universe already, so it's not like it's beyond possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
that kind of.
Oh yeah, it's super positive. But I've always, yeah, even as a kid, I always kind of like wanted to watch Star Trek. I just never did. No reasoning behind it. I just never got to, or never had the chance to, or never knew where to watch it on, or. But it's. The reason why I know that I love Star Trek is I do love the J.J. Abrams movies. I love the casts. Everyone in that movie is like has been one of my favorite actors. I mean, to the point where when Anton Yelchin passed away, Chekhov from minute one was my favorite character anyways.
Oh, he took that character so like
Oh.
for having such a small role in those three movies, he takes that character so freaking far.
Yeah.
I love.
And you know more than I do because you have been watching, the older ones and you've seen them. But just seeing that character like that, it's like that's enough for me at this point in time. But I know that if I go back and watch, I'm gonna be like, oh wow. But it was to the point where I was so in love with that character, and then I was starting to like just become enamored and just in love with Anton Yelchin too. And so when he passed away, first of all, when I heard the news, I cried. I cried. And I was just like, wow, this is the first real celebrity death that kind of hit me.
Can I tell you why that might be one of the ones? Not just the fact that he was, by all accounts, an amazing dude, but because it hit me very similarly. He was my age when that happened.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He was born the same year I was. So to be like, and to like the fact that accident was so freaking.
Oh, my God.
Like so freaking tragically bizarre with like, oh God, that's one of the things that I think really hit me with that.
The final movie, which I can't even think of the name of it right now.
Beyond.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So every time he was on screen, I couldn't control myself. Like I just started bawling. And so it just like added this emotion to the movie that like was so much deeper than that movie intended to be, at least for me. But every time he was on screen, I just started bawling. And I'm like, man, not only are you a really fantastic story, but like you're making me cry just because of the character and like who's playing the character. And this character is just so good. Chekhov is just it's such a good character to have in your cat. Like it's, I don't know.
Yeah, and really like the character. So in the original series, he doesn't show up until the second season. So he's in the seasons plus all the movies. And really, it was their big thing for that was that they had in 1967 they had a Russian on their show.
Yeah.
Like that was the big thing. Like obviously Walter Koenig is not actually Russian, but like he was Russian. He was young. They had him in like this really bad wig that looked like Davy Jones. It was kind of goofy, but like that was kind of the big thing was, hey, look, part of like Star Trek's whole thing was we need to humanize the other, like the way that whole idea of, because again, coming from World War II, Gene Roddenberry was very big on like humanism and everybody kind of coming together, and that's how we were going to get into the stars, was that Earth was going to become one big kind of family group that then went out exploring. That's just why they're explorers. They're not military people and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird that like Anton Yelchin is the reason why I love Star Trek, but he really is. Like that's
I mean,
It's just
sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes
and
it's just the characters that you love.
yeah, and then just seeing the actual actor die, like never seeing that check off again is really heartbreaking to me. I don't know. I feel like that's a weird way to look at it, but
No,
it's
I mean
just the
that's
way
and that
how
that's
it
not.
affected me.
I mean, and that bleeds into a lot of why there's like that divisiveness with the original series fans
Exactly.
versus the
Yeah.
movies. That
Yep.
like the actors are different, so it's not their actors and all that. But I do think that that cast really just like took those characters and went,
Mhm.
these are ours. These are our versions of us. We're going with that.
Yeah.
And again, it's that whole nostalgia, and it all goes back to that nostalgia thing. They went, here's the nostalgia of the thing you love, but also we're taking it and we're reshaping it into a
Well,
new thing.
well,
It's like a perfect.
how about we come back to Orville, which does that? Like the Orville is basically a love letter to Star Trek, and is it harps on that nostalgia fact, but it does its own thing. You know,
Exactly.
it it does exactly that. But people aren't crazy when it comes to the Orville, and that's why I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's flying just under the radar of like,
Mhm.
here's the fans that love it, and it's going to be fine with them, and the people that don't have to watch it.
Yep.
And there we go.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So
Well,
I think that brings us
that was
toward the end of things. Yeah,
good.
that was good. That was good. I needed a cool down after all of
Yeah,
that
I agree.
raging, I think so. Uh, so yeah, this has been Say Report Junior. Everybody, I've been Zach Sarowick.
And I have been Dale Decker.
You,
Go. Were you
oh,
gonna say Twitter?
I was. There you
Me
go. You
too.
can find us. You can find us on Twitter at Say Report Junior. Right now, most of the tweets are me promoting myself. That's just gonna keep happening.
And
Like
there's one tweet there where I call out the Say report. It was pretty nice.
I,
I was pretty proud of it.
so you'll see us. So from there, we'll probably put up things. I mean, I'll probably go through and put up some things related to whatever we talk about each episode. I'll promote my stuff that's coming out. I should have a new essay on my blog coming out this weekend, so I'll promote that. Sunday night, I'm going to hope to stream and this time not be a muted mess. But otherwise, so yeah, you can find us on Twitter at sayreportjr, and then you can find me on Twitter at Zerwiski. That's Zerwiski.
Yep. And you can find me on Twitter at Dale's Brain. So DaylesBrain. And I
Cool.
don't tweet a lot, but I retweet a lot. So
There you go.
And that's it. Yeah, I'm probably gonna start streaming too within the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
And once we start doing that, you can probably find us there as well. I know that there is going to be some Say Report Junior crossover as well. I know that's in the works. So you can look out for that. But until next week, I'm gonna throw it over to Liz. Have a good day, night, anyone. Blah, blah, bleep-a-doo.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to The Say Report with your hosts Dale Decker and Zach Sarowick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.